We go. So you can all please stay. Please stay for the conversation. I might
Yeah,
communicate with Mark
I
Howard.
don't want to talk to an empty room. That would Is it me or the recording?
Welcome.
That's really a neat feature. I've got to look into how I can bring that about for my Zoom meetings, that people can choose to stay or not.
Mhm.
Well, I'm just really pleased to be here with everyone. And, Kelly, you and I could kind of have a conversation too. Um, there's I just have been inspired to talk a lot recently about a couple of things. One being about how it's just love and understanding, and how that really brings us to our true essence. Um, but to start with, just to let you know, around um, the originals idea, the idea of originals, we're now being called the originals. It's better than the older people, being around for so long. Um, but it was really fascinating to really be there, really at the start of this becoming, um, being brought out into the communities. Sydney Banks had been speaking um, for quite a while before I came to hear him. But at the time that I came to hear him in 1982, there were just a few groups of people really starting to bring that out into the work they were doing. And the evening that I went to his seminar, I was really blessed with a powerful insight that really changed me. I didn't know what to do with the insight. I didn't know how to live with it. But I knew that if I understood what occurred to me in listening to Sydney Banks, I'd be happy. And so would the clients be happy that I was helping. So he was talking, and I saw three things. I saw in that moment, literally, that all of our feelings are just made up. Not that they're false. It wasn't that kind of idea. It was knowing that they're just created from thought, that they're not they don't have a life of their own. Which prior to that, in the work I was doing and the therapies that I was uh, using, feelings and emotions had a life of their own, and we were trying to get people to express them and share all of their feelings. And I just realized in a moment that that was nonsense, because they're just made up. And then I also really got the truth that um, we all have within us uh, a knowledge about our true essence and about the nature of life. I got that it's within us, that everybody is, in my words at that time, mentally healthy. Everybody has a source of well being, whatever it is they're looking for, happiness, it's already in people. You don't have to give it to them. You don't have to give them anything for them to be happy. So that occurred to me that evening. And then, going home, I was in a different feeling state, but I didn't know how to live with what I had just seen. But when I went back to the clinic the next day to see my patient, I realized with what I had seen, that insight and what I knew, I could not do any of the work I used to do. I could not do any approach that I was trained in, or that I was mastering. That wasn't going to help people. But again, as you can imagine, I didn't have much to share except like one sentence. Your feelings are made up. But people stayed with me, and we carried on a conversation together. And my evolution of understanding Sid's teachings and how to share it started then, and continues to evolve. I just stayed with that from 1982 all the way now to now. And I was talking to Kelly that that first year, 1983, 1984, was very thrilling. It was really a time of discovery. And there were a handful of us here in the San Francisco Bay Area of California that kind of met together to just discuss how we were doing with our understanding and how to share that. And that's like where Kelly said, George Pransky and Linda Pransky lived 20 minutes from a drive from me. So I would go over to George's house on Tuesday mornings and we would talk for a couple of hours at a coffee shop about this understanding. It was just a beautiful, beautiful time. So there's so much that, that I'd like to share with you. And I think one of the things that has been so helpful to me is to see that every human being is the same as you. Every human being is the principles. Every human being is the energy we call mind. Every moment of their lives and your lives, people are creating a separate reality from yours, a separate way of seeing life than you every moment, just like you are using the principles to create the experience you're living in. And everyone is the same doing that. There's no one is not mind using the principles to create their experience. Now that was really momentous when I saw that, because in the field of psychiatry and psychology, in mental health, people aren't seen that way if they're suffering from what's so-called mental illness. So it was like really a life changer for me. And the clients that I was working with gravitated to that, because there's something in people when you relate to them from you knowing that, that they resonate to. So it's very powerful to just live in your life with other people, reminding yourself they're the same as you, all spiritually. I kind of say where it counts, it's like everybody looks different and will think differently than you on anything in life, really, but they're really the same as you in their true nature. In fact, you are connected to them. You are mind and so are they. And, mind is this energy that encompasses all of life. So that's a very, very powerful sense of understanding about our true nature and being in life with other people. But what I don't know, what I wanted to speak to is about love and understanding, because for me, when I would have a small group meeting with Sydney Banks or attend one of his seminars that are now out there on DVDs available to everyone to stream, he would talk so deeply that I couldn't understand it intellectually, but he would say things that really helped me. And when he would say, after the end of speaking at a very high level of consciousness, and he would say, it's just love and understanding, I said to myself, well, I can do that. I know love and understanding. But it's really beyond our even thinking about love. It's not about love for the form you live in. It's not about love of another person. It's really a consciousness that you are in, that's available, not so much available to you, but it's there right now. And Sid has talked about it in other words, like contentment. It's really a space. It's really a consciousness that when it occurs to you, um, you just feel these wonderful feelings. If you could think about them, they would be love. They would just be this pure sense of well-being. And what's powerful about pure love and understanding is that when you're really in that space, you have no thoughts about yourself. And really, that's curative. If all of us could reduce the amount of time we engage thinking about ourselves, we would be in these natural feelings. So the minute you would really be clear your mind of how you're doing, what you should have done, any ways that you have thoughts about yourself, the minute that really clears and you're quiet about that, these feelings come to you. So in that feeling of love, pure love, Sid would say, contentment, you don't think you need something more, or you don't think you're lacking. It's not personal. It's at times Sid would say it's impersonal. The spiritual is impersonal, meaning that it really has nothing to do with your own particular way of thinking, you know. It's something you're a part of that's really beyond your own personal thoughts and the ways and so forth. So I could, when he would share that, that really helped me. And I could live in that. I knew how to live in that. And as he shared more and more about how health is really contentment, I started to really find ways to live in that and honor that when it came to me. And you know, so I just wanted to speak a bit to that. One example of the power of that, my wife and I were at the Long Beach lectures of Sid's Long Beach lectures. It's out again on DVD. But we were there, present with Sid, sharing that to a group of about 300 people. And he spoke for the morning and then gave us the afternoon off. And that feeling he always talks about, listen for the feeling, this feeling I'm pointing to, both my wife and I were living in that space at that moment. And it was, you know, as I look back on it, this isn't thinking about it then, but there wasn't really thoughts about ourselves. You know, we were just, I don't know, the word giddy is like, you were just like nonsensical. You were like laughing about anything. There wasn't really any thoughts about how our relationship could be better, or there just wasn't anything personal going on. And so there was a lot of like laughter together that really didn't make sense to laugh about, but we were just laughing. And around the city in which Sid did the seminar, they had like a weekend over here in California. They have like wine and arts. The cities put on wine and art festivals throughout the summer. So there was one going on in the city. So we go into the city. We go into the festival, and right as we enter, there's this place making kettle corn. And kettle corn is kind of a sweet corn, and they like really have these big pots, and they're making it, and I love it. I love it. So I, of course, stop, and my wife's waiting for me over on the side, and I'm in such great feeling that I say, give me the extra large. You know, it's like, I'm not even thinking about sizes. I just in this feeling. I say, give me all you got, is the kind of the way I was feeling, you know. And I watch them and they keep filling this bag and they hand me the bag and it's as tall as me. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to just laugh. And I turn to my wife and I say, and I show her, and she's laughing. And I'm only telling you the story because that's just one story of awakening our true essence. And without really doing it, you can't do that because that's a lift in your level of consciousness, you see? So you can't really change your level of consciousness. You can recognize that you're at a level of consciousness, but you really can't change it. Anyhow, that's what we were in. We were in that feeling Sid pointed us toward, and it was coming out of us through thought this way. Now, it wasn't that we had purposeful thinking. Oh yeah, we're laughing right now. Let's keep laughing. But again, you couldn't express any of this feeling without thought. You see, we're back to thought being formless, and it just allows us to express, to like get to the festival, to see a festival, and for me, to see kettle corn. You know, thank God I have thought. I can see kettle corn. So, but we all have that feeling. And it's what really heals relationships. It's really people beginning to nurture. I think you can nurture this feeling. Like when you drop into it, you could stay rather than think your way out of it. You could stay in the feeling when it comes to you. So I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. Most of my work early on was with couples and relationships. And, you know, when couples come to see a psychotherapist, they're usually in difficulty and they're thinking that the other person needs to fix things so they could be happy together again. And so both people are telling me how the other person needs to fix things. During those meetings, though, they may have a moment of tenderness. They may reach out and hold each other's hands. So they have a moment of tenderness. Their reactivity to each other settles down, and they're in this moment of tenderness, and then they go right back to it. And I had to help them see that in that moment of tenderness, they were where they wanted to be. That's really the place they were looking for, and that it just came out of them. And so it's there. And we can talk in ways to wake that up more. But I wanted to help them see that when they had moments like that, they were really in a place that would help their relationship, but it was also a place that they were all searching for with one another, an expression of love. Tenderness is an expression of the deep essence of love that we are all a part of. But I help them nurture that, to help them begin to settle down the idea that, okay, that's great, we were tender, but let's get back to the more serious, important issues, you know, and help them say, no, 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 those aren't the important issues. The important issue is for you to nurture your tenderness for one another, your goodwill for one another. So, Kelly, how's this going? Anything you wanted to bring up?
Yes, it's going great for me, but I don't want to be so selfish to occupy the room, but there's lots coming up for me. Does anybody have anything that's coming up for them? Anybody like to share something? I always find, Mark, that it takes a while when the speaker stops for the community to, you know, to find their way to whatever's happening. You know, I myself, when you said that, you know, thinking less about myself. So when I come to these rooms, I have a lot of thinking like, oh, I got to get the person in the room right. And oh, I want to, and I realized, wow, that's so personal,
Mhm.
and really just being present and calm and in the place of being here now. I just fall out of any of that experience and then just be in the moment with you all. Letting go of the way I think it needs to be or what it needs to look like, so that I can just be in this moment.
Yes, I think both in anyone here who is sharing this understanding in your work or wanting to share this understanding in your work. Again, what Kelly talks about is really where the power lies in being able to share it. It's really to quiet down your own thinking while you're with someone so that really the wisdom you're a part of, the intelligence of mind can guide you. And it may say, somebody wants to enter the room, let them in. It might be that simple. But when it comes from you being quieter about your sharing this understanding with others, you may do the same thing, but it'll be softer. It won't be so urgent or have a lot of personal energy on it. But there's nothing like being quiet with someone and really trying to hear them. That really is a powerful guide to how you would share with people or be with people. I talk about that a lot in my mentorship with people about the listening. But I want to just get back to that point, really. Sydney Banks, where that point about not thinking about yourself came from is, again, this really blessing I've had. We didn't meet with Sydney Banks a lot through the years, but there were times when we would meet up in British Columbia for a weekend, a small group of us. And, he would talk with us or we would just hang with him. And one of the times we were talking about self esteem. And he said, well, you have self esteem. Whatever it is that's you're calling self esteem, you already live in it. But you're thinking about yourself too much. That's why you can't find it. When you think about yourself, you move yourself away from your true, what he didn't say it this way. This is my way of getting it, was you move away from your true self-esteem. It's already there. It's another way of saying your love and understanding. It's another way of saying you are the intelligence of the universe. You see, it's another way of saying innate health. That the minute you really quiet, uh, the minute you stop thinking about you, you will naturally be in what we're all calling self-esteem. You don't need a course on self-esteem. In our, every so often around here, actually through all of my time in the mental health field. So we're looking at a number of years, um, there's been at times, the community wants to improve self-esteem, and they've got some ways of providing trainings for kids on self-esteem, get the structure of the environment right, teach them these things. And, some of it is very supportive. I mean, anything you can create in the form that supports children to develop, good feelings, is always helpful, but it's missing this ingredient that everyone already has it, were it not for our thinking. Um, so I just wanted to take that from what you said, Kelly, and share a little more about it. I didn't know what to do with that when I first heard Sid share that. I knew it was true, but I didn't know how do you stop thinking about yourself? And it really wasn't he didn't share that for us to go to, well, how do I stop thinking about ourselves? He shared it for us to hear that deeper. that we already have whatever the so-called self-esteem is. We already have it. And then isn't that something that you are already everything you're looking for? That's what he meant. The happiness you're looking for is already here within all of us right now. And were it not for whatever thinking we're doing, we would live in it. Like I'm thinking right now, in order to share what's coming to me with you. But that's what he really wanted us to see, not how do I think less about myself. Now, the way I lived with that was to reflect on it, meaning that, wow, this made sense to me. I just want to see more about how I think so much about myself and quiet that down. Not in a strategy way, but just in a reflective way. And if all of you have had some realizations around this understanding, you may resonate with the fact that as you go along your life, or go along your week, go along your month, things seem to come to you from the realization you had. It's a different way of gaining understanding rather than working at the insight you had and practicing it and making strategies up about it. If you just live with it in a reflective way, you will get more. That's what Sid said. He said, just go live. He never gave strategies. He always just said, when you see something, stop and just live. And but he had a great knowing that if you've had an insight and you just live with it, without getting too concerned about getting it perfectly, you will see more from it. I don't know if all of you have had that kind of experience. I've had throughout my course of this understanding, having the insights I've had bring more knowledge to me. But anyhow, that's the piece about what he shared around self-esteem, and how really we take ourselves away from it, thinking about how we're doing. I would love to hear from you, just so it helps kind of guide where I might go to next. If anybody has something they'd like to ask or share.
Is it okay if I share something?
Yes. So, where are you?
I'm in Liverpool in the UK.
Oh, okay. No, I meant on the square here.
Oh.
Well,
I can't help.
You might have to slide. Are you on an iPad or a?
Who, me?
Yes.
No, I'm on a MacBook.
Okay, MacBook.
Yeah, so if you...
Yeah, go ahead, Pauline. You go ahead if you want.
Oh, Pauline, I see you.
Yeah, okay. So I signed up to do this heartfelt presence, volunteering hour, and I know some of you guys are on there as well. And it was my very first time, so I'd had lots of thinking about myself doing that, and hosting and just being there for somebody else. And then when I went, it was 3:00 this afternoon, and I'd been in a really low state of mind all day because I'm feeling a bit poorly. So I've been really agitated and not in a very good mood. So I arrived for this session, and I've never felt presence like it ever. It was just, I felt so connected to this person, and although she didn't want to talk, she just wanted to just be in the room with no speaking.
Mm.
And then that presence started to go when I could see that my mind was starting to go, oh, I wonder why she doesn't want to have a screen on. I wonder why she doesn't want to talk. I wonder what she even gets out of being here with just. And then I just noticed that I was doing, and then I noticed I was doing it, and I started to observe myself doing it. And then I started to drop back into that space. And before I actually showed up, this book of Sue Pettitt's book of poems,
Oh, yes.
I just opened up
Yes.
where I wanted to read, and just towards the end of the hour session, I just said to her, "Would you mind if I shared something with her?"
Yeah.
And I shared what I felt about how I'd learned so much to just be quiet myself, and noticed that I wanted to know what was going on in the background. She was making a noise, and then I kept going back to the quiet, and it was just so nice. And then the poem that I picked it was weird because I'd picked this before the session even started, was "How long is an hour?" And I read that out to her. I read it before we started myself, and then I read it out to her when during that session, and I hadn't even realised that. Oh my God, it was about the hour, and that hour just completely flew over. And I would have thought that it would have seemed like longer because I wasn't speaking, but it felt like 10 minutes. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but the
Hmm.
connection that I felt was, it just brought me to tears.
Well, that's the feeling of it. That's the feeling that I'm sharing with you. And it's deep enough that it does bring you to tears. It's that resonance of something way beyond our own personal selves,
Mm.
that we are all a part of. And again, I love that you were able to get an experience of just being quiet with someone, and being there without insecure thinking, that somehow the reason you found it is because all of that insecure thinking beforehand dropped out of your mind.
Mm.
And again, the wisdom to read, pick up something and find that in that book of coming home, uh, allowed you to sit in that feeling. But us sitting in that feeling really is powerful. Um, Sometimes when I'm mentoring people, they feel like they've got to share the principles. How do I share the principles? And it's like, well, wait a minute, let's first let that be guided by the rapport you're in, the feeling you're in with your clients or your friends. Let that be guided by that first, rather than your own ideas of what's needed. And it really seems that the wisdom you're a part of and what your client is a part of, because both of you are mind in that call. You are both connected in that call to this intelligence, guided you. And it's really interesting that you could see how your our thinking creeps in, and it's like, and you don't get away from that because we're always creating thoughts, but you start to recognize what to go for and what not to go for.
Mm.
So it's powerful just staying in that feeling with someone and respecting what you feel like they need. And then it came to you. Again, the guidance from this intelligence of mine came to you to read from that book. That's how it works. And throughout my years, I have gained more and more certainty that that will be there to guide me. And each time I dropped into another level of certainty about the intelligence of mind being there to guide me. My work with people became more impactful and connected, including just in my life in general with the people in my life. And the other thing that brought to mind around the power of that feeling is that up until December of last year, I worked for a year and a half at a inpatient psychiatry medical center that was part of a university out here. And we had people that were really in serious, troubling states of mind, with really, really troubled thoughts, very, very troubled thoughts. And when and my being with them, even if I left my office to walk the unit, I was always sitting and knowing they had well-being and mental health right there. Now it may not be showing up, but given the way that they were thinking, but I lived in that. So that when I approached people or they approached me, the way that I was talking to them from that knowing had an impact. It had an impact to kind of go beyond all of this form of really, really troubled thinking, disorganized thoughts that weren't at all based in reality, all of the stuff that people can get into at lower levels of consciousness, but they never lose the fact that they are this mind, that they are love and understanding, they are happiness, they are contentment. And at any moment, they have a chance to rise above the level of consciousness they're in, because it's just a level of consciousness, you see. And they may not, but they always have an opportunity to do that because of what they truly are. So when you shared that's what also came to mind. And when you live in that, or you kind of come back to that as you live in your day-to-day life, with the people you're in, in a love relationship with, or family, or friends. When you really sit with that knowing, it impacts the relationship. Not only that, but it gives you a better way to be a partner, So what you get out of your own personal ideas about how you should be treated, sitting in this deeper feeling with someone really, really gives you the wisdom to be sharing love with them, generosity, come to them with the feeling of gratitude, things like that. Thanks for sharing.
Thank
It
you.
was a beautiful story.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That was. We have a question, Mark,
Oh, okay.
from Brenda. If only one partner is involved in a 3P process, then what?
Well, that's a beautiful question. It's a beautiful question. It doesn't, you keep deepening your understanding. And when you bring that understanding into the relationship with your partner, it will change things. It's nice if both people are learning together, but that's not really necessary. Because when you move with understanding and you bring that into the relationship, you really settle down the insecure thinking of your partner. For example, let's say you have an understanding that the way you're thinking about your partner is what is causing you dissatisfaction, not them, but the way you're thinking about them. Let's just say you have that understanding. Well, that'll do wonders in the way you are with this person. You'll see them differently. You won't be judgmental. You won't tell them to fix things about themselves. And when people see that, get a feeling about you from that understanding, it's harder for them to hold on to their own judgmental thinking. So the way I draw it, I usually draw it talking to people about when you come in, let's say here's your thinking bubble. And prior to your understanding, you had all of these negative thoughts about your partner. When you start to get understanding, that erases a good portion of your negative thoughts. So you move into a person who's got a whole bunch of negative thoughts in their thought system without this, and that starts to erase the negative thoughts in them. You don't create insecurity. If you live with someone with your understanding and you get more of it for yourself, you lessen creating insecurity. I hope that makes sense to you. And I'll share with you in a different realm of my work with my colleagues in the medical center. And my colleagues were psychiatrists, psychologists, and social workers, and some psychiatric nurses. And every Tuesday, we would have a 90-minute meeting of the whole department of everybody. And people would share some things about their patients and how they're approaching them. Well, prior to my understanding, prior to that evening with Sydney Banks, that first evening, I would sit in judgment of them. I would sit in, well, wait a minute. I've got the right way to work with people, and yours is not really helpful. And I would debate them. After meeting with Sydney Banks and about 6 months of deepening my understanding, during the meeting with them, I got a realization, because I was living in a different understanding of how I was thinking and how that was affecting things. And it occurred to me, your colleagues, it wasn't quite this way, but your colleagues are doing the best they can they want to help their patients. And this is how they think they can be helpful. And they really have a calling to help. And I had this deep understanding of where they were coming from. That's the understanding piece of love and understanding. You start to see where people are coming from. And when I saw that, all of my habits of judgment left completely. And my heart went out to my colleagues. And I just sat in the room in that understanding, honestly. And if my habits started to come back, I would just let it go and come back to this feeling. You see, I had that understanding deep enough to see when I was starting to detour, and I could correct myself. Now, here's the power of that. 3 months later, I'm really living in the clinic now with this understanding. And it changed the way I talked to my colleagues and how curious I was about them. And I really wanted to listen to them. And so 3 months later, a psychologist came up to me and said, "Mark, I've been watching you, and you're a different person. And you haven't gone back to your old person, like there's the evidence, And she said, I want to learn what you're learning." So you see, it only takes you to bring the understanding into your relationships with your partner. You bring your deep understanding to the relationship. It changes things. It can't help but change things. I'll give you one more story. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
It just came to me. It's a beautiful story, but a lot of my work was to run an alcohol and drug program for this medical center. And so we had a lot of people who I was sharing the principles with, this understanding, who were in recovery from addictions. And this one woman shared a beautiful story about her gaining this understanding. So here's her story. She would her when she started drinking was at 5 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, she would be cooking dinner. Her husband would come home, sit in the front room, and read the paper. What she wanted was, when he came home, for her to sit with him, but he wasn't available. So she started drinking, and because she wanted that, but didn't know what to do about that. Anyhow, she gets this understanding of where her experience is coming from. She starts to wake up the feeling of love, and she starts to see deeper than just intellectually getting that she's drinking at 5 o'clock because maybe it's tied to that she'd like to be sitting with her husband, or him appreciating her when he came home rather than just go read the paper. Well, she got into that feeling one evening at 5 o'clock, and here's her wisdom. She got into the feeling of understanding, love and understanding, and it said, go sit with him. It just said, go sit with him. So she goes and sits with him, and she's in this feeling of love and understanding. And she goes sit with him, and she says the first thing, he's shocked. He's like, he doesn't know what to do with that. But she's just sitting there, not demanding anything. You see, it's different going there with judgment than going there with love and understanding, or waking up your own understanding. And she's just sitting there. It didn't matter to her that he didn't respond to her. It was okay with her if he read the paper. She just went and sat with him in the feeling. He couldn't ignore it. And not in a negative way. He just put down the paper and started to just talk with her. And she just kind of shared the feeling she's had for him. And it just started to change things. That's the power of it. That's really the power of it. You get your wisdom that directs you. When it directs you and you go with your understanding, people can't ignore you. Now, it may not be a dramatic, immediate response to you. Oh yeah, I get I don't want to make a joke about it. I was going to make a joke, but it's too special. But they will get the feeling of your understanding. They can't ignore it. Just like this colleague of mine took 3 months to really, to really act on the feeling she was getting. The sense of me she was getting when I was bringing understanding to bear. But they can't. But they can't ignore it. It just. So that's what you do. Now, here's one other thing. If you're thinking they should get better, you're moving away from your understanding. And I'm talking to you firsthand. If you're thinking, well, they should come to a seminar. I've got this understanding. I've been bringing it to bear. But we would do so much better if only they went to one seminar with me. Once you start thinking that, you got to realize you're out of your understanding. You're in your human condition. Now, it doesn't mean don't invite them. It means, where are you when you invite them? But it's very powerful when you bring to bear this understanding. This understanding changes people. It allows people to transcend their habitual thinking. You're not a robot. You're not as these behaviorists talk about us. I was I was in graduate school, and B.F. Skinner, he was the founder of what is now, behaviorist therapies like the cognitive behavioral therapy and all of that. We're not a conditioned robot. We do get conditioned. No doubt about that. When we grow up, we get habits of thinking that we don't see as habits of thinking. However, because of the fact that we are mind, we can transcend any of our beliefs. We can transcend our conditioning. And isn't that a beautiful thing about life? We're not. So let's say you have learned growing up to be a worrier. And, you go around life saying, oh, I'm a worrier, Yeah, that's, you just see yourself that way innocently. You can transcend that because that's just ideas. That's not you, right? The you is like the intelligence before the universe, right? That's what you got going for you, So that's the beauty of this understanding. That's the power of it. And when you bring that to bear to your relationships, it opens up a chance for your partner to rise above their conditioning. Because that's all they're caught up in is their ideas and beliefs. But they get touched by your love and understanding. The minute they get touched by that, it brings them beyond their conditioned ways, like it did for my wife and I. That whole afternoon, we couldn't get into ideas that we're even married. We weren't even thinking about it that way. We were just in this state of energy. Now that I look back on it, that's how I describe it. But it was just joy. It was just being goofy. Anyhow, I hope that was a long answer to your question, but it when I'm listening here, it just brought more to share with all of you, and I hope that was helpful.
Thank you, Mark. As I walked it, I started hearing when you were sharing with Pauline about, I was like, oh, we're already going there. And then the question just deepened and and I'm very grateful. And I think do you know Elvis Costello?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So he had a song as you started off the lecture, and I got to share it because there's a line of his song goes, what's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? And I'm just like, and then he goes, whoa, I'm going to take that forward in my life, in my day. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. Would anybody else like to share or have a question?
Hi there, my name's Pam. Thank you, Mark, for your insights. I wanted to share that on my personal journey, learning about many, experiencing mental health conditions and coming through that I started to realize I was expecting someone to give me something I didn't have before I could give it to them. And when I started learning about the 3 Ps and sort of peeling away my negative thoughts and being able to see someone else, that knowing, like you say, that they have within them and coming from that place. And I just got this really tactile sense of I was expecting it to be given to me and then I could give it. And I realize now I give it and then I get it.
Yeah.
And it's like this tennis ball sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I did have to get it by learning about the 3 Ps. So in that sense, it's true. But I just want to thank you for, creating the visual and the experience of that, how it's this kind of infection of other people, being able to reflect for them, but what they can't see yet.
Yes.
So yeah, it's just this kind of mirroring, and you can always choose to see the best in someone. And I don't know, it's just kind of a funny dynamic, and I can absolutely speak to that as an experience of one partner in the 3 Ps and the effect on the other partner, and having gone through the fixing stage. Tried the fixing thing. Yeah, doesn't work. But and also, if I can just share that, I started reading The Enlightened Gardener yesterday before bed, and within the first 2 chapters, you get the strong message, and it made me realize how psychological treatments that I've experienced or was exposed to were about fixing a problem, and the 3 Ps are about there is no problem. You created the problem, and just that sense that if I'm trying to fix something, I was broken by something, and I have no control over that. But if I'm living from my true nature, I have absolute control and responsibility over that. So it's up to me, and that sense of responsibility feels a bit hard at first, but then it's so empowering. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing today. Thank you.
Well, you shared a lot of wisdom. There's a lot to what you just shared. And what I just want to respond with, there's a few things that just to respond to there that's really beautiful. You had to get something. You shared that you had to get something, but it's given to you. You didn't have to get a strategy. What you got was given to you. It's there for the taking for all of us. Sid said, you have knowledge beyond what you can imagine in your consciousness now. So yeah, you had to get to a level of understanding, you had to get that, but it's different. It's a different way of getting it. It's given to you. It occurs to you. It comes to you by way of a realization, rather than you needed to get a strategy so that your mind would think better. And when you're in that deep feeling of love and understanding, when you're in that knowing, you just give. And when you give, it comes back. But you don't, it's a different, again, yes, you must experience it. I'm just kind of elaborating my thinking of what you shared. You know this too, I'm sure, that when you're giving from love and understanding, this purity, it isn't about looking to get something back, but it comes back. Again, it's a different way of operating. Now, everybody who has tried to help someone in some kind of mental health issue, again, is they're using the best of what's out there in the world of form, innocent of the ignorance of really what people are, what we truly are as human beings. So when you don't know that, you try to grab the best that's out there to try to be of service. And then it's just beautiful that people can wake up to the fact that it's already within them. Yes, and I'm really happy that you shared that. When you bring that understanding to people, there's a different feeling in the relationship.
Thank you, Pamela.
I don't know how many of you are doing, are working within the principles, like sharing the principles in the work that you're doing, whether you're a coach or another health practitioner or an educator. But I do want to share something about this feeling we've been speaking to today. I was brought over to the UK like 10 years ago to do a year-long training to a group of people that were learning this understanding from a very well-known coach over there. And at that time, there was this popular saying around some of the principles around do nothing. There was some popular saying of like do nothing, do nothing. And so this group, the first day I met them, were talking about like, well, we do nothing. And that I never had heard that before, and so I reflected on that during the break, and I really wanted to help them. And it came to mind here as I was quiet to share with you. When I am focused on what I am called to do, my mentorship or coaching or doing a presentation, when I get to that place, either an office or on a Zoom call and we're ready to go, I bring myself to this feeling. I clear Mark Howard's thinking and quiet down and get to a loving feeling. And so I do something. There is something to do. There have been times, through the years of my learning, that I would leave the house sometime to go to the medical center in the early years and not be in the best state of mind. Maybe my wife and I were in a good feeling, and then I said something about dinner and it struck the wrong chord, and I kind of left disturbed or in distress, I don't know, caught up in something, and when I got to the office, I had to get myself away from that thinking and really get into the feeling of love and understanding, and really be in that when I was going to start to help someone with this with the understanding of the principle. So there's something you do. You want to get yourself there. Now, during the session, all of you that might use this, you can see, like somebody said earlier, how your personal thinking might come in, like I've had times when somebody was really difficult and I would get a thought like, oh my God, why did they give me this person? Or somebody was really, it was my last client of the day and I had to do grocery shopping or something that evening before going home. And somebody was taking a really long time and they were bringing up something that I had to spend a little extra time with. And I'm thinking, oh my God, why did I get this now? And I had to quiet that. I had to go back to that feeling of understanding and let the intelligence of mind guide me. I just brought that up because there really is something to do to get yourself into that place when you're doing the work of the principles. I just wanted to offer that to you. Now, what's funny is that, if I left my house upset, and after my first client being in that feeling, I had really, I was no longer upset. I just let it go. It's the power of just living in that. I hope that made sense, what I was sharing with you there. But that's one of the things I've learned is like, trust that. Really do the best you can to get to that feeling of love and understanding, the knowing that the other person has all of the wisdom they need. You're just there to help guide them to hear that. Get to that. And before you start in sharing what you know about this understanding. Anybody else want to share? Anybody else with any questions or thoughts? Just beautiful hearing from you.
Mm-hmm. I'm just looking at the comments just to see if there's any questions in the comment. One of the things I notice, Mark, is that silence sometimes invokes wisdom.
What was that? I'm sorry.
I said, sometimes what I notice is silence invokes wisdom. When we sit in the room of silence, sometimes it just bubbles up in someone.
And in you too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you getting quiet
Mm-hmm.
allows me anyhow to pull away from the energy of my sharing, because the energy of my sharing I have to form thoughts, and getting quiet allows me to listen deeper, right? Or just get all of that thinking settled.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much to say about quiet. If you notice you're off in your life, get quiet. If you're off in sharing this, get quiet. Get out of, like I like to get out of Mark Howard. Kind of regroup. Let the wisdom you're a part of help you out.
Mm-hmm. Martine says she loves the reminder to be in the right state before talking.
Mm.
Yeah. So we have a few screens off. I'm curious. Sometimes we go into breakouts, and there's still 30 people left in the room, and we create some community. And I spoke to Mark about this, and I thought if we wanted to go into breakout, what we could do is split the room into two, and Mark can jump between one room and then the next while others are meeting each other. So, for those of you who would like to do that, then I invite you to stay on and join us to meet other people in the room. And then I can reestablish the connections. But before we do, does anybody have anything to say? Oh, here we have. Is Mark familiar with the work of Dr. Gabor Mate? Are you familiar with Gabor Mate, Mark?
Yes, I am. That's the physician in Canada, right? That works with people who are addicted. And I think usually it's more of the homeless community. I am somewhat familiar. I did read some things about him that he wrote a few years ago. The person who's asking, can you share with me what you see as valuable there?
Oh, hey, Mark, it's Brenda again.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, he speaks very much to loving and loving what is and working with who is there, not what he needs to bring to a person, just holding space. And he does a lot of trauma work with people who with the homeless community, but with trauma. And to people from SAND, which is a non-science and non-duality. I've just made a film about him, which is about to premiere, which is, I think, going to be very interesting. And he's doing a lot of really thoughtful work.
Can I, but I would love, I think that's a really, to me, a description of him that I see, as well as the feeling of love he has. But what came to you to ask about whether I knew him? What came to you? I'd like to hear that.
He is, because I'm always on a quest, because that's the nature of me. And I'm, as I describe myself, as a sponge, and I just want to know, I want to know everything. And Gabor Mate has been on my radar for, well, I worked with his son in 1988 as a little boy on a commercial. So that's how long he's been on my radar. And he's doing that silent work of just showing up in the world and holding the space. And I just think, being here with you, I am in that getting out of my head here, getting out of my head, the feeling that you present, that love to show up, and I'm forever going to take that kettle corn with me. It's just that giddy moment of just like, wow, I just get it. And it's like, and then the grasp, I get it. Oh, I don't get it at all. And then just sort of like getting into the flow. So the people that, show up in my world, I'm raising it. I'm 61 and my daughter is about to turn 16. So I'm the grandma of mums, granny of mums, as I call myself. And I just, I'm looking every day just to find that, continually find that love in the midst of some stuff that's really tough sometimes. And I'm reminded of Gabor, and you remind me of you. You are someone who now has shown up to me to reflect to me that, as my partner, who is not really awake anymore, used to say to me, love is everything. And that's where I'm feeling that love is everything. And that's what I take notes, because that's what I do. And I'm just, every word on the page from you is love. So I think about that. Thank you. Long answer. Sorry.
Yeah, Sid said there's truth everywhere. And, you find your way with truth. That person you mentioned certainly expresses pure love. And that feeling is a good measure, a barometer for you, for all of us. But once you awaken your own understanding of where your experience comes from, where your experience really comes from, you see it everywhere. And you can take in from other people the gems that resonate for you. That's the power of the principles. Is, of course, it's spiritual, formless energy. Of course, you are this energy that Sid calls mind. He called it God. But in addition, the curative factor is also that people can wake up to where their experience of the moment is really coming from. When they wake up to that beyond intellectual knowing, they shift, they change, because the minute that resonates, they're at another level of consciousness. They're living at a higher level than their problem. You see, they're living at a higher level than the level where the problem was created. There are sayings. Einstein had a saying around that too, but this is coming from the principles understanding of it. The minute you or someone you're trying to help really resonates with, oh man, my experience is coming from within the way I'm using thought. That might be the way they word it. They see something about that. Somebody has shared with me, someone that I was working with said, "Oh my God, Mark, I just realized I don't have to think every thought I think. I've been thinking everything that came to mind." That was a shift. Now, in that shift, you want to see for yourself and other people, they are now at another level than where their problem existed. That's why people could say they don't have a problem, because they're at another level of understanding where the problem looks different. It doesn't look like a problem. They just know what to do with it. Now, it may be important. It may be an issue they need to take care of. They need to do many things about it, maybe, but it'd be approached differently. So that's really why it's important to let people know where their experience comes from. When they see it, the minute they see it, they're beyond the level of their problems. They're beyond how people around them are causing them stress. They're beyond that. And when they're beyond that, they get a touch of wisdom that directs them in a different way to handle what's going on in their lives. Man, I didn't know that I was going to speak to that. Thank you so much for sharing. And as I got into it, this just occurred to me to share this with you. I thought, oh man, that's a great idea. I'm really impressed with that coming out of me as well. Though that happens sometimes. I don't know if it happens with you. When I'm talking with a client sometimes, or they're talking with me, either they or I see something we hadn't thought of before.
Mhm.
There's a hand up.
There is, Mark. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Brenda. That's lovely. Annette, please go ahead.
Yes, to what you said at the end there, Mark, about realizing that you hear something yourself in a conversation with a client. That's where I'm like so surprised and going like, where did that come from? That wasn't me. And where I'm clearly have gotten out of my own way, and that wisdom is just coming through, and it feels like I needed to hear it myself just as much as the client. But I actually had a quick comment about Gabor Mate, because he was here in Norway a couple of years ago, where he did a workshop with a German professor called Franz Rupert about identity-oriented psychotherapy theory. And when I walked out of there after the 2 days, I was just so happy I had this understanding, because otherwise I would have felt like I would have had this immense job about fixing myself. That was what I took away from it. They ran a workshop with lots of theory, and then showing with example how to work with this identity oriented trauma and fixing all the traumas, and really going back in time and all this, and really digging into the old traumas. And having been in this conversation for about 5 years, and just knowing how we're not broken, how our mental and physical health can't be broken, and that when I get out of my own way, in a way, I have access to that innate well-being. It was just so freeing to sit there and know that I didn't have to go through all this incredibly hard work to be okay. So I felt very at peace and relieved that I had this understanding with me, and I felt kind of sad on behalf of a lot of the people. I'm sure it made a lot of sense, but I just remember I was so relieved knowing what I know, and didn't have to go through all that hard work to be okay. So, but Gabor Mate has a lot of really good work and good stuff, and he has a book called When the Body Says No, which is definitely worth reading. But again, it's it's so freeing to have this understanding, where you can just come back to the fact that we're not broken, and we don't need fixing, even though it feels like it at times. So that's just what I wanted to share. And thank you so much for a beautiful conversation.
Well, I think that's really beautiful. You know, what comes to mind for me is how your whatever understanding you have, it protects you. And then you could see uh, the well-meaning of people to try to be of service, but your understanding protects you to know what to hold as truth. And you know, we could talk a whole nother time together about trauma, because I think, again, Sid's words are just they're simple but profound. And I just did a presentation at the 3P UK conference about the profound simplicity of mental health. And he has simple answers that are profound. And again, you know, he talks about how, you know, you really don't need to take people to the past in order for them to become mentally healthy or rise above the effects of their past. They just need to have understanding that it's over, it's gone, and now it's just a memory, thought. They're just bringing thought. How does he say it? They're just bringing thought into the present from the past. See, I'm not saying it right, but you just look at people who are trying to understand people suffering and help that, and our own understanding of this truth protects us. It protects us in our daily lives. You know, it protects us from our own, you know, our own well-meaning habits of thought. You know, to take things personally. We start to wake up to, oh, wait a minute here. My thinking's gone south. Okay, let's come back. I don't know if any of you know Keith Blevins, but he and I, you know, we were around together right from the very beginnings. And we used to teach together, and he would talk to the group about recognizing that your thinking's off. And he would say to the group, hey, everybody, you see this indentation in my forehead? It's from going, oh no, there I go again, you know? And it was a nice way to help people see we're human, and that we will get caught up in our habits of thought, our insecure thoughts, but this understanding protects us. It comes back to us. We recognize what we're doing. We remember. And all of that allows us to come back to, you know, to the feelings of love and understanding. And I think, again, that's a beautiful gift as human beings, living with wisdom. We can do that. This wisdom in us can wake us up can bring our understanding to consciousness again. You see? We can get caught up, we take a detour, and this wisdom brings our understanding to consciousness, which allows us to come back. My cat that I have here at home can't do that. No matter how many times I talk to her about these principles, she can't recognize when her thinking's off. I'm being stupid right now. Sorry about that. Help me, I don't want to end on that note.
No, I'll help you. I'll tell you what happened. Speaking of energetic consciousness, I was really in a great feeling, and I walked into Starbucks and I was just feeling the love and the understanding. I had been listening to Sid, and I ordered a short coffee, and I said, well, maybe you could just throw in a little love and put some white mocha in there. And they typed on the actual cup, white mocha. What they said, it just said cafe americano, white mocha, and then it said love and understanding. And I thought, this is the way energetic works. This is how it happens. And I actually took that cup out and I was sipping away, and I just looked at it. For whatever reason, I never do that. And there it was, love and understanding typed on my cup.
Wow. Yeah.
Mark, we have one question or a statement, moreover, from Mete. Mete, are you still? Yeah, there she is. Mete says she's often speaking with a lady with OCE. This is difficult for her to get this. Do you want to explain, Mete?
Oh, did I write OCE? I meant OCD.
No problem.
Yeah. So yes, and she really wants to get this, and she had been talking to a 3P lady, whom also is into what is it called? Metacognitive therapy. Do you know that? Do I pronounce it okay? But it is therapy where you don't want to go back as 3P also, but it includes some methods. Do I pronounce that okay?
Methods, yeah.
Yes. But somehow this OCD is, could I say, capturing her mind. I guess that is what OCD does. So so she is very, very caught up in her thoughts all
Mhm.
time, and I'm talking with her, and we are having good chats, and that is actually the only thing I can find out doing, being in the speak with each other. I don't know what to say other than what comes to me, just as you have said, when I'm in the speak, I'm just saying what comes to me, and I myself find I can learn something from that too. It's interesting to be in that kind of speak, but I don't know how to really help her.
Well, being with her and just chatting is helpful. The only other thing I would suggest is you can be curious, like you can hang out in a nice feeling and just chat, and she's getting a nice feeling. If your client, I don't know if it's a woman or a man, but if they're getting a nice feeling, that's helpful. But the other part to our work in principles work is also letting people know, like I said earlier, where their experience is coming from, because otherwise they'll just attribute their good feeling to other things. Now, when you're with them, if you listen, being curious about something there that they're telling you that might puzzle you, or you might wonder about. Like, for example, you might just wonder about, well, why are you thinking so much about that? You see? So you can start to do that, and that might lead you somewhere where I talk to people about a teachable moment. You could have a teachable point by really listening and being curious with people, even people with OCD. The other thing is, when you're with them, you don't want to be thinking they have OCD. The minute you think this person has something, you're not deeply connected anymore. The minute you look at them as a cat, I'm not saying anything about you. I'm doing this general. Mete, I'm not talking about you. I'm just sharing generally. If you sit and you think, oh my God, this is a symptom of OCD, how am I going to help that? You're now listening to yourself. You're not listening to the person, and you've got them in a category. So when you see them, you can't see OCD. You have to quiet your mind about that. But then you want to be open to be curious about what they say to you. Like if you're just going about your normal every day and you don't know they have OCD, and then you be curious, well, why are you, what makes sense to you to wash your hands so many times? Well, they'll give you, but no, really tell me, I really want to know, why is that important to you? How does that make sense to you? If we can hear that together, I might see something that might help you. So that would be the other element. I talk a lot of.
Yeah, may I say something? Because it's not
Well,
about
it's
washing.
getting to, Medi, it's getting to time where I need to stop.
Yeah.
But you can email me about that. But I do need to stop for today. I hope that was helpful. There's another element here beside just sitting in the nice feeling and keeping your mind quiet, and that is, how do you listen where that will guide you? But that's a whole other thing we could talk about at some time.
Yeah. Thank you, Mete, for your comments. Thank you, everybody. I'm just going to go on to Gallery View and say, this has been a lovely conversation. Even though we didn't go to breakouts, we had even more in the grand room. So remembering next week is on a Monday, and we go to Mondays for the month of June and July. And I just want everybody to open up their microphones and say a beautiful goodbye to Mark, and we'll see you all next week, whoever can be.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you
everyone.
so much, Mark. Thank
Thank
you.
It was great being with you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Love.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Bye for now.
Mark, Phil Kromka, good to see you.
Hey, Phil.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to give you a call, Phil.
Okay. 408-455-2798.
Bye.
All right. You got the number?
David. I'm saying David. It's Phil.
Yeah. Well, that's my first name. I go by Phil.
Beautiful.